Well, welcome to Phoenix. Let's take a walk around this 1995 stucco home built in North Phoenix. Stucco house. Do a quick walk around, start at the back side of the property, go through the whole thing, kind of give you some ideas of what to look for when you're buying a property down here or when you're trying to maintain your own property. There's some common things that most homeowners don't think about that I end up seeing every day and bring to the attention of wonderful homeowners that were not aware of it. But that's part of my job. First thing first, we had a little grassy area on the east side of the property. It's about noon right now, about 1:30, so the sun's directly over top. So we're getting a little bit of shade next to the house, but a lot of sun right here. But as that sun keeps moving that way, this is only going to stay shade through the rest of the day, so it never really gets to dry out. So if the sprinklers were hitting the wall, hitting the windows, they were causing some stucco damage, which we can see some patching right there. We're missing all of our screens on the windows today. But we've got sprinkler heads within 1.5 feet of the foundation. So any leaks from the sprinklers or any overspray from the sprinklers is soaking into the ground, going underneath those concrete tiles there, and then coming up through the foundation. And then as it dissipates through the foundation wall, it's leaving some of this spalling, some of these white marks right there. That's just the mineral deposits that are left by the water evaporating. And as the water evaporates, it pulls the paint away from the concrete as well. That's why we're getting a lot of this concrete peeling. Paint peeling on the concrete. Some issues here, not major issues, but definitely in this area where the water manifold is for the irrigation system, we've had some patching and some big horizontal cracks right here. This is an indication that your rebar inside your foundation is actually expanding. You can see there's actually a nail in here that's starting to rust. Some of this is just gonna come off. It's not really patching anything, it's falling off anyway. So this is part of your foundation wall, and the more this is exposed to the exterior, the more moisture is going to get in there, the more problems we're going to have with our foundation. So this is something that I definitely call out a foundation repairman to. I don't see any settlement, I don't see any movement. We could call out a structural engineer, but I don't see the structural movement at this time. So definitely need to get this fixed though. This low spot in here needs to be brought up. There's no reason this should be lower right next to your foundation. The ground next to your foundation should always be higher than your house. Higher and then lower, right away. A little bit more of that cracking underneath the stem wall here on the back patio side. We've had drill and fill marks, so we've had termite treatment. Missing a screen on the back patio sliding door. The rollers in this thing are kind of shot too. It's still moving, but you can hear the rollers just grinding around back there. So on the back side of the patio, the sun's kind of going to be in our face, but we've got some water damage to the fascia. Over the years, the fascia has really seen some weathering, water runoff in certain locations. We've got some nails popping out right there. The beam, the columns, the concrete, besides a little bit of cracking right there and a little bit of water ponding in these areas is fine. It's actually sloped away from the house like we need to see. But these corners of the fascia do end up getting rather damaged. You can see they actually sistered this board at one point. They added another board alongside of it. Not sure if that was, well, they moved this whole column, so they must have moved it. See that metal band right up on the top there? That little metal band with the little lip. It's called a drip edge, so the water will run down that metal and drip and not drip down the wall. It'll actually drip like 1/4 of an inch away from your house, unless, there's a breeze or anything. But the point of that is to get the water away from the fascia. In some houses, when they were built, they put concrete tiles on the roof, but they left a little asphalt shingle area for the HVAC system because we were mounting them on the roofs back in the 80s and 90s. So we don't have any drip edge installed here. Now, you don't need a drip edge for concrete tile, but you need it for asphalt. So whenever they installed this, they completely left out the drip edge right there. So all that water coming down is getting into the fascia and damaging the fascia boards. Some window cracks, we've definitely seen moisture, more than one area. This has been repaired at one point in time. Cracks above the window have been repaired. Roof surface doesn't look bad. We've got a big hole up there, right on one of the middle ridges. Really needs to be patched and repaired. Walking around on the west side, heading south, we've got main plumbing cleanouts on the side of the driveway. Garage door was working great today. Now we do have a little bit of heaving in the middle, so excessive moisture on the outside of the house is actually going to dump moisture underneath the concrete, and as it builds up, expansive soils kind of bring that concrete to push up in the middle. That's called heaving. So we can see some of the cracks in the concrete here. It extends all the way through the garage. Trim up at the gable vent, really deteriorated. Needs some sanding, painting, prepping. Now we typically see a drain installed in the walkway out here, so all the water that builds up over here can get out. There's no drain installed, but we do have some settlement. So we've got that going for us. We've got a little bit of a trip hazard going there. You can see the concrete expansion joint actually split because of the movement. Electrical panel on the east side of the home. This door was wide open when I got here, and you can tell that it's been opened before because all of our labels are gone, wore out, so I'm going to recommend that they get reapplied. But the GFI was out in the garage. It's just one outlet in the cabinets. I turned it back on to test it. Seems to be running just fine. And always looking underneath the eaves for any woodpecker marks. There is a spot over here on the side of the house that I actually think could be a woodpecker. It might actually be just a spot where they ran wires in. It must be over here. Yeah, up at the front. So you can see some of those holes. Fascia damage right there. But I'm more concerned about those holes. They don't look like they were man-made. Looks like something was pecking at it. So we do have a little bit of moisture damage there. You'll be able to see that in the attic video. A little soffit vent with some water damage on it. So they might have had a security system, video camera hooked up here. It's hard to say, but that hole needs to be fixed. Alright, same thing with the drainage in the front. We need to make sure that this stays drained. It wouldn't be a crazy idea to add gutters. I know, it's Arizona. Who has gutters in Arizona? Well, the people with nicer homes do. Stucco gaps are on the doorbell. Front door is sticking. This hinge on the top and in the middle, they didn't put it in very right. This screw is sticking out, this screw is sticking out. There's a couple up here sticking out, so the top door sags a little bit. And when you try and close it, it hits. So the hinges need to be readjusted. Door handle itself is loose down on the bottom. It's not the right door handle. We don't have a hole there to actually screw it in, so they just put in a door handle that looks good, but it's not actually built for this area. Moving on to the inside of the house, we're going to take some left-hand turns. Looking up at the ceiling, seeing a little bit of cracking over there, a little bit of movement in the ceiling, nothing crazy. Small closet, always looking for termites, didn't see any today. I've got a thermostat, I've got the AC on right now, set it at 66. It's cooling great. It's about a 20-degree temperature split on the AC splits today. Bedrooms, not much to talk about. We do have a single light on the wall, fan kit up on the ceiling. The light switch does not operate the fan or the light at all. It only operates that half hot on the wall. So if you want a light in here, you'll have to plug in a lamp. Actually, that one's got an open ground on it. So when we plug it in, there's no power, right? Because the switch is off. So turn the switch on, and depending on how you hold it, there's an open grounder in there. So it's a loose outlet. It's wore out. It's probably been used quite a bit. That'll go on the report today. We had about 60 psi water pressure today, tested at the main water shutoff valve. Which reminds me, I wanted to show you that because it is a gate valve. Gate valves were common when this house was built, but what happens is over time these valves will actually start sticking. This one seems to be fine. It's got a little bit of resistance in there, but it's not terrible. But we do always recommend these gate valves be replaced with a valve just like this for this line. This is your irrigation system on and off. This is a backflow preventer. This is your main water line going into the house. You can turn off all your water right here. The duct system for the vent for the dryer, just put in with sheetrock screws, popping right out of the stucco. You got to get some adhesive around this hood, and then get some actual some drivers that are actually going to grab the stucco and stick in there. And of course our water bonding, because we have copper water pipes, but we need to fill in those holes around it. Keep those pesky spiders out of our house. All right, back to the inside. Smoke detector. We've got a smoke detector in this hallway, and we've got a smoke and carbon monoxide detector in the other hallway, so we're good and protected. Now the garage door does not have self-closing hinges on it. Typically we'll have two. We'll have a bottom one and the top one will be self-closing. Somebody removed them. That's a fire barrier no-no. This is a really thick door for a reason. It's supposed to stop your fire from coming in from the garage. But if your door is wide open because you brought in groceries and it didn't close behind you, who cares what thickness that door is, because it's not going to help you anyway. Laundry out in the garage. Looks like they built a little custom stand for it. No problem here. It is wood, so if anything drips on it, the wood is going to deteriorate. Termites are going to be attracted to it. We really don't condone putting a lot of exposed wood, especially around wet areas. But your connections were all serviceable and working today. Dryer vent, that's where it goes right out by the main water vent there. Some small holes on the wall. Here's a lot of your screens for the windows. Attic access. Typical sheetrock cracks up on the roof or the ceiling. Looks like somebody spent some time trying to patch them up a little bit. So cabinets, they're always going to limit my view of the wall. You can typically see the wall behind the closet or behind the cabinets. We do have some water damage. Something leaked out of that, dripped down through there. Didn't make it all the way to the bottom. You can see they put some supports in the cabinets to try and hold those shelves straighter, because they're starting to sag over time. And that's your cable line coming in through the wall and up through the ceiling. We really shouldn't have plastic wires go through the ceiling in the garage for fire barrier reasons. And again with the cabinets. Now this is the GFCI outlet that was off before I turned it on in the electrical panel. Let's see if we've got power today. Yep, so we're good to go now. That is controlled by an arc fault breaker in the main service panel. It's the only arc fault or GFCI breaker out there today. Garage door is opening, closing fine. We do have some issues with the heaving of the garage floor. You can see the cracking starting to form. So this concrete's kind of going like this, pushing up in the middle. Moisture evidence, when we've got paint peeling on the foundation, that means that the concrete has absorbed moisture and it's trying to evaporate it through the walls, the warm areas that are exposed. Water heater, 50-gallon water heater by Bradford White, looks good today. No issues. They've got a drain pan put on the bottom of it, so anything that drips or leaks into the pan should drip down onto the concrete and out the door. TPR valve is correctly hooked up with hardline rigid plumbing. Got your doorbell transformer up there. Main water shutoff on the cold side. TPR valve way up on top. I did pull these screens away and found that you're missing an outlet cover in the garage. More bedroom, same deal here. Got a single half-hot outlet. One light switch does not work on the ceiling, it only works on that outlet. Bathroom itself here, you can see there's only one outlet or one switch for the light. There's no fan to turn on. We do have a GFCI outlet. You can always test those by just pushing the button and hitting the reset button. But your only ventilation in the bathrooms at this property is going to be through the windows. So if you need to, or if you can, open those windows every time that you take a shower. Otherwise you're going to have excessive humidity issues. You're going to have rust on metal parts. Just a lot cleaner to get that air outside. This is a big one-piece tub shower unit, so you don't have any caulking joints other than around the exterior and around the top perimeter of the shower. It was working great today, didn't see any issues with the function. Underneath the sink, a bunch of little water droplets. Once that wood down there absorbs some water, it just blows up. It's like those little toys they used to drop in a little glass of water that would blow up into a dinosaur. It's kind of what that wood does. We did see some gaps around the caulking of this sink, and in the overflow it's still plugged. So whatever they used to plug that when they were installing it needs to be removed. Onto the primary. Heater, AC was working good today. Window going to the backyard, no issues here. Other than it doesn't open. Yeah, it was open earlier. It's just sticky. All these tracks get loaded full of dirt and debris, and then it makes it really difficult to open the windows. Latch is working good. So we've got one of these fancy bathrooms that has the sink and vanity out in the bedroom. Not a huge fan if you ask me. But got a little closet out to the side. Little place to put your clothes. Always check for water leaks underneath here. So every sink has had some form of water damage in the cabinet below. This has got some wear and tear. Missing some of the laminate in the back there. But the sink drains themselves and the sinks have been replaced. Toilets were secured today. Do your toilet shimmy, make sure it isn't moving. Again, with the one-piece tub, we're just missing a drain stop here, so I wasn't able to test the tub to see how much it got up, but I filled up the other tub and drained it. Went down the line just perfect. Some of the caulking along the bathtub here is starting to crack, open up. We want to make sure that that stays sealed so water doesn't get in between there and into the wood in the walls. Create some issues. Now we have had a decent amount of movement in the concrete, heaving wise garage, in the garage. We do have a pretty decent crack that goes across these 4 tiles in the hallway. So it follows that along there, and usually when cracks are in the middle of tiles and they go through to the next tile, that means a concrete crack below. So I can't verify how big that crack is, but it's likely there. Now I gotta scan the floor, trying to find any more cracks, making sure that there isn't any. Alright, so kitchen, we've got your fridge that isn't here. I can't test it. All this paint has been redone. There's water marks on the floor. You've got a water line that goes through the cabinets, all the cabinets, all the way over to your sink, and it goes up in there from this cabinet. And where does it come in at? It doesn't. So somewhere along the process they lost that line. So if you want water over at your fridge, you're gonna have to probably have that line redone. They abandoned the copper line in the wall that they were using. That's what this valve is for, built-in plumbing for this, but for some reason it was leaking. They didn't want to reuse it, so they put a filter underneath the sink. I know that because there's a sticker down there that says replace the filter ever so often. There's nothing there today, so they took it out. Whatever filter was mounted below the sink here, see, here's that label, Brondell reverse osmosis system. They've taken it out and it's gone now. So you have no way of hooking up your refrigerator until you get that line redone. Now this is one of those sinks that's supposed to turn on and off when you touch it. It doesn't. We know that it's one of these sinks by looking at this little box up in here. That's what controls your water. There's batteries in that. Sometimes the batteries wear out. And this hose should definitely go back up into the faucet. So your GFCI circuits in the kitchen, you've got one reset right there. That's all we have. Not working. No GFCI. No GFCI on this side of the oven. But we go over to the sink area, and that's controlled by the GFCI. So 1995 house, building codes were a little bit different than they are now. Now everything in a wet area should be GFCI protected, and even in dry areas it should be arc fault protected. But when this house was built, it was only required to be within 3 feet of plumbing appliances or plumbing fixtures. So anything within 3 feet should be GFCI protected. This one's got a little sticker on it, so I'm sure it is. Unless the painters played around with it. But this is an older style of wiring. You could redo the circuit breaker for that side of the kitchen with a GFCI outlet or a GFCI circuit breaker out in the electrical panel to protect all of them. It's just how they did things back then. It's how they built houses back in '95. To bring it up to current code, yeah, these would all be protected. Your bathrooms would be protected. All the exterior outlets would be protected as well. Ground fault protected. So this is the wall that we've had all that sprinkler damage to. I'm not sure if you can see some of the staining we've had. Paint peeling is almost a surefire indicator that we've had moisture below the paint when paint comes off something. So we've got a lot of it right here. This paint's just falling right off. This metal trim is bent out as well. Might have been damaged, but my guess is something hit it right there. You can see it's creased, and that pushed this whole frame out. Could be some moisture damage. We'll get a moisture detector and double check, but you see some funny marks right there. It almost looks like termite damage, right? We won't know until we get in the wall, but it comes straight down, so it could be water damage, could be some termite activity in the wall. We know it's excessive moisture on the back side, but I can't open the wall up, and they've definitely put some extra paint over the top of this a couple different times because the paint does not match all the way through. Well, let's see what kind of mess we can get into up in the attic today. So we're going through an attic access hatch in the garage. Looks like it's gonna give us access to the rest of the attic. So let's go up here and crawl around a little bit. Blown in cellulose insulation. Not over the garage, not necessary over the garage. Plenty of insulation up here. I don't like that kinked duct. There's no reason for that. That duct has way too much of an angle for no reason. It could have been a straight shot down. I'm seeing a little bit of water leaking over there. Some stains on the insulation and the vent for the duct. And that white PVC line over there is that condensate disposal or condensate drain from the HVAC unit up on the roof. And it looks like that moisture was coming down actually through the wire conduit going up to the HVAC system. A little bit of water staining over there on that soffit vent. OSB sheathing. Let's see how far back here we can get. Looking for any anomalies, anything that sticks out that might be moisture damaged, might be installed incorrectly. Mainly water leaks. It's primarily what we look for up in the attic. Unless there's been some structural movement, then we're looking for some truss movement, things like that. Don't see anything too crazy up here. So most home builders will put a tape measure up in the attic, so you kind of get an idea of how thick your insulation is. About 8 inches. As long as it's covering up the trusses, the bottom members on the ground, I'm happy. You can always add more insulation and increase the R value of our attics as we need. But 8 to 10 inches minimum for cellulose. Surprisingly, I don't really see any water damage where that hole in your roof was. It's a pretty big hole, it needs to be fixed, but it doesn't seem to be leaking today.